Welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Axion.
I'm Scint.
And we are continuing through Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire and Final Fantasy V.
Yep, and we're going to kind of continue on the question of just how much is Dumbledore allowed to dumble. Though not really him specifically, just the idea of how far should an authority figure be allowed to go in defense or pursuit of a specific ideal, especially when faced with someone who is potentially equally, if not more so, unfettered by any such things as scruples.
We're talking about the idea of extremism as a solution to extremism. Specifically, in this context, inspired by the character of Barty Crouch
Sr.
Yes. The only Barty Crouch we know of through most of the book, but yes, specifically Barty Crouch Sr.
Yep, just when we're talking about this one, it's very important to get our suffixes correct because one of them
matters in this case.
Yeah, it very much matters because they are completely opposite ideologies. So, last time we talked about the use of unforgivable curses basically being a one-way ticket to Azkaban, and also how we kind of immediately get to see that, yeah, the Death Eaters have no scruples, no compunctions about breaking that law because they use them freely first chance they get. So, on the other hand, we also get to see that Barty Crouch had used them as well. Specifically, used the Imperious Curse on his son after his wife begged as her final wish that her son be freed from Azkaban, even though he was a psychopath. So, to honor his wife's wishes and stop his nut job of a son from wreaking havoc on innocent people around him, Crouch Sr. controlled his son with the Imperious Curse to stop him from wreaking havoc. This obviously turned out to be a problem because, as Harry shows us the first time Moody tested on him in class, the Imperious Curse can be fought, especially if you have more and more time to practice it. And with it being regularly applied to him, Crouch Jr. eventually became able to throw it off completely.
Yep. And Barty Crouch Sr. only really had his house elf watching over his son to keep a rein on him just in case anything went wrong, and therefore when it did go wrong, given the situation that house elves are currently in the wizarding world, as we will discuss in more detail later, Wakey did not really have any recourse to do anything about it.
Yep. But we also do need to talk about Crouch's other actions because, well, you might almost think that freeing his son and then controlling him with a mind control spell would be almost merciful when you know what else he is known for amongst most wizards. Because, let's be honest, I'm going to take away your free will is pretty beyond the frickin' pale, so the idea of calling it merciful is bizarre until you know that Crouch was what we call the hanging judge. Like, if you were suspected of being in league with Voldemort, you were getting, at best, a very lopsided trial. And at worst, no trial at all, Azkaban, 1 million years dungeon, unacceptable. Which, as we find this out from Sirius, who tells us he never got a trial. Barty Crouch sent him to Azkaban without one. And while we know that there were lots of witnesses to that street blowing up and the perceived murder of Peter Pettigrew and everybody on that street, we know that that was very carefully staged. And Sirius was sent basically on the strength of that evidence alone. How many other suspected Death Eaters who theoretically could have been acting under the Imperius Curse, since we know that's a thing that was freely used, could have been sent to Azkaban. Because this basically means the first two characters we meet in conjunction with that have been sent to Azkaban were done so on false charges. Hagrid and Sirius. So, by the time we actually get to the fourth book, where we have met people who belong there, so to speak, because they are actually mass murdering torturers, Azkaban does not have a great track record for actually putting innocent people there. Guilty people there, you know what I mean.
Yeah. It has a great record for putting innocent people there.
Oh yeah, and the Dementors don't care. They just want to feed on emotion. So honestly, the fact that you're going to get someone innocent there might be better for them, because look at all that delicious fear and high emotion and panic. So, yeah. From the trials we see, well, we see Bagman's trial, which is pretty lopsided, but not in the way Crouch expects, because Bagman is popular enough that he wins the crowd and is able to get off without so much as a slap on the wrist, because, well, he wasn't in league with Voldemort. He talked to someone that he didn't know was in league with Voldemort, thinking he was fighting Voldemort.
Yep.
Then we, yeah.
Granted, he kind of mostly just leaned on his sports popularity to kind of get by, which is problematic in its own way, but at the same time, I can't rag on the guy too much about it, because
like, when your life is in the hands of the jury, you need that jury on your side.
Yeah,
especially if you know you're innocent, and this is very much an open and shut, I will say you are guilty because you are guilty, even if you're not, sort of situation, which seemed to be how a lot of Crouches went. We see Karkaroff's trial, where Karkaroff is guilty, but he's made a plea bargain that if he can give up enough of his fellow Death Eaters, he won't go to prison. So Karkaroff is walking free today because he turned on basically everybody he could remember, which happens a lot in these sort of situations. What comes to mind for me, actually, is the HUAC hearings with under McCarthyism, where you're accused, you don't want your career ruined, and the only way you can save it and not be accused yourself, and not be, convicted yourself, is to rat out everybody you know in the hopes that, something will take the heat off of you. It is not a pleasant mindset to live under, with the constant paranoia of literally anybody around you with this mindset could be a spy waiting for the moment to strike and take you down. But especially when they've established that there is mind control going on, all bets are off. And then we see his own son's trial, where kind of odd to see that Crouch Jr. was such a wreck at the trial, when we get to see that he has absolutely no remorse about what he's done as an adult. That could just be like, the time spent in Azkaban has hardened him, like as mentioned, or I don't know. It's hard to say, because we only get to see that one snippet of his past, and that could have just been, I got caught and I have to face my father about it.
Stop with the lightning!
But, yeah, with the idea in mind that so many of the suspected were thrown into Azkaban without a trial, you kind of have to wonder if someone like Crouch was a boon or a bane to Wizarding Society at the time. Because, on the one hand, absolutely, you want to smack down as many of these harmful people as possible, because if you leave them free, they can turn on you the first opportunity they get. On the other hand, is it worth destroying an innocent life?
And, well, we get the impression during the bits we see in the pensive that Barty Crouch doesn't believe in very many innocent lives.
Yep. So, it's a very difficult situation, and, I do not envy anybody in a position of power who has to make that call, because I'm not sure I would be able to make a correct call. where do you draw the line between innocent until proven guilty and reasonable doubt? Not something I'm going to find here because the evidence all points in this direction, and we need people to feel safe and secure and to get these monsters off the streets before they can harm anybody else. Especially because, like, if we're looking at the Stranges and the Crouch group that, you know, went torturing in the hopes that they could find any clue where Voldemort was, when you cut the head off of a snake, sometimes it dies, but sometimes it's desperate enough to cling on and be a little bit more dangerous for just a little while longer. So It's a highly, highly risky game. But yeah, how far is too far when the goal is to stop an extremist movement that, given the opportunity, will destroy everything it can? And something I'm discovering as I look down the list of books we have recommended is that is something that is a recurring theme across much literature. And we'll talk about that one in another book soon.
Yep.
And with that in mind, it does kind of make Dumbledore Gonna Dumble maybe a better thing than it could otherwise be. If you're going to have a bunch of authority figures who are all going to do whatever they think is capital R right, maybe not marching in step with what everybody else is doing might be a good thing. Because if we go back to the first book, it takes courage to stand up to one's enemies, but it takes even greater courage to stand up to one's friends/allies/peers.
Yeah.
And as we see at the end of the book, that's going to have to be what Dumbledore does, because he's not going to have support from the Ministry of Magic.
And it kind of puts him in a familiar, if uncomfortable position that shows up in a lot of fiction, where people have to defy the powers that are supposed to be protecting them for the sake of doing the right thing and helping the people who need help.
Yep. So I'm not really sure how much more I can add on this.
I'm not sure there is much to add.
In that case, let's call it here and move on to next time.
Yep. Kind of a nice little short discussion, but it's kind of a really straightforward situation that all things considered is pretty easy to solve. Well, not solve, that's the wrong word. It is most certainly not easy to solve. It's a very complicated issue. But it's easy to state what the right thing to do is. It's actually executing on that's difficult and comes with all of the pitfalls and headaches that we are all too familiar with, both in real life and in fiction. But yeah. See you all next time.
Bye.